Welcome. Today, the topic is more than just Manonash. It's the celebration of Baba completing Manonash for the benefit of the West during the first 2 weeks of seclusion that he was here in Myrtle Beach. And I thought that the best way to start is with a moment of silence. Hey, Baba. So Manonash is the destruction of the mind, Baba spoke of. And so I'm going to begin with an apology because I'm going to start using mine to we're by nature, Baba talked of us as being human thinkings or thinking machines and infinite intelligence. It's our nature to try and understand things. And so we do, we try to understand things, our minds are active. And I remember when Esfandiar Vasali visited from the Prem Ashram boy, he came here multiple times and he would tell his stories. And then it would be opened up to questions and people would ask questions. And he said, love God, love God. It was always love God. And Baba says too, in terms of the 4 ways of knowing God, whether it's Gyan Yoga, Raja Yoga, the various paths of yogas, love is the direct path. And so our attitude towards the mind and understanding right now is to think in terms of it takes a thorn to remove a thorn. So Baba had a lot to say about Manonash, and I'm going to give a rough context and overview, some quotes, and then later anyone who has either on the screen can share them here. So the first, I'm just going to pull up I need to share something here. So this is Baba talking about his experience during Manonash. During my work of Manonash, the 4 companions who were with me, as also others who were near or away from me, have helped me to their utmost limit. All along my Manonash, I have been absolutely helpless and full of weaknesses in my ordinary human state. And it can be truly said that God in his manifestation and that the saints and the prayers of all those who love me have accomplished for me the internal work of Manonash, while the 4 companions have seen to its external aspect. I wanted to start with that because Baba is doing it all, but it's obvious that we participate in it. We have a role to play. And so that's kind of what this is an exploration of. About using the mind, whoops, I got another one. There we go. And this has to do with the relationship between the ego and the mind. It's from the discourse on Manonash that Baba gave in the end of June of 1951, when he was preparing and announcing for the Manonash coming up. Baba's speaking. Last night I felt that it would be best to set out all by myself. I then remembered all my limitations, my silence, my failing health, etc., which forced me to admit that I must not fool myself and at was really not possible for me to go alone. I therefore have to consider your offers very carefully, and I shall let you know my decision later on. Mind is never transformed. Ego is transformed only once. By ego is meant astiva, the being, existence, meaning the real I. The transformation should be clearly understood. Mind cannot be transformed. Why? Because it is not one itself. Mind survives by desires and thoughts, and it is made up of impressions. Ego is one in itself, but this real ego, the real I, is now bound by the mind. And this mind, which is made up of false impressions, makes the real I think itself false. Mind makes you think of birth, death, happiness, misery, etc., as real things, but nothing can be more false than this. When the mind dies, the false ego is transformed into reality. Real ego is never born and never dies. Ego is always real, but due to the mind, it feels and acts as limited and false I, and as limited false I. So the purpose is to go from human thinkings to human beings. And actually, we were thinking human, hu is the term for God. Human can be considered the God man. And human beings is the goal where we're beyond thought. One thing I was wanted to say earlier, and I'm going to have Rosalie mention it, apropos of our intellect and the mind. You want to do that quote, Rosalie, from to be able to?
Oh, this is from Nerina Machiavelli's diary. It's also in Nerina's Gift, the book. To be able to believe me, open your heart. Do not allow your mind. My mind is not allowing me. Do not allow your mind to be obscured by giving his, my mind is rattled.
It's that kind of a day.
Hmm. 97. I hope this is helping everyone else's mind to slow down. To be able to believe me, open your heart. Do not allow your heart to be obscured by giving to the head any imaginary motives to argue. Rest in me. Be selflessly detached when you are consciously experiencing unqualified confidence in my divinity. Be sure I have come to this world to achieve the new wonder of spiritual resurrection. I put into you the desire to use your intellect to serve me. That service will initiate in you and in the world a new rhythm of pure and selfless love. How I achieved this wonder of spiritual resurrection is no more a secret. I am here, real and dynamically active in your higher self. I am the self immutable in all creatures. I read this a long time ago and I just went, wow, a new rhythm. And that's italicized with the capital R. And when Narina, who received this, when she met Baba in the body in Harmon-on-Hudson in November of 31, she immediately took him to be the Christ. And she was weeping and weeping and weeping, so much so that after he had his time with her, he would, in between interviewing, talking to other people, he would check in on her because she was very, very moved. So anyway, she wrote Baba this very impassioned letter and says, "Are you the voice that's been speaking to me? Is it you?" And Baba actually wrote her back, it's in the archives, "Yes, I am the voice, but don't share it now." So that was 1931. So
He asked her to find her personal.
yeah, say that. Go ahead.
Yes, Baba said not to share it at that time. He said she had found through her intuition, she had made contact with the impersonal God, but not to share it at this point with others and to find him personal. So in the intervening years through the Nasik period, she, of course, had many occasions to establish that connection personally with Baba. And then it was after that period during the Blue Bus tours that she first began utilizing that voice through articles, which we'll talk about in a while. But the idea of Narina, what's important about this is the context of Manonash. Baba was in Hyderabad because Hyderabad was very spiritually advanced. They had a lot of mus in that area. And there was a mountain that he began the Manonash period on, a cave on that mountain. And also on the mountain was a mosque and also a Hindu temple. So he began, Manonash, as you know, had the theme of dealing with the religious rites and rituals. And Baba had the four models of the four major religions. And he was observing those rituals through his mandali. And they progressed during that 4 months until they got back to Marizad. And Baba completed Manonash in Marizad on January 31st by tearing up on a piece of paper he had written all the rites and rituals of the religions of the world, and he tore that up and threw it in the Duni fire. So that happened in Marizad, Baba's home in the east. And now we find in the letter, which I was in publication, so you're familiar with it in the announcement, but it was a letter Elizabeth wrote just before Manonash to Baba, saying that everything was in readiness for his visit. And Baba replied how pleased he was and that he needed to be in seclusion for the first 2 weeks of his visit in order to keep complete Manonash for the benefit of the West. And so here we have Baba completing it for the West in his home in the West. And home is a very important consideration that Manonash was completed in his homes, respectively. There's a distinction between a home and an organization, a center, or whatever kind of an organization it might be. And the difference, I would say, is that we're social beings and we have minds, and we have proclivities. We're attracted to this or that. Organizations are conceptual frameworks. They're generated by the mind to appeal to a group of people, an organization of people to accomplish something. So they have a vision and they have rules. We do this, we don't do that. Whereas a home is different. A home is a connection. There's a organic connection, whether it's through DNA or through the feelings of love and connection. And it's more, hopefully, heart-centered. Mind is involved in everything, but it's more heart-centered. And a home is generally established by a woman, by the mother, by the feminine quality, the feminine quality of intuition, nourishing, so on and so forth. But a home is not, your family is something you can't leave. You always have that connection. You can go to a different organization because you don't like the way this one's run. So, so the fact that this Manonash work was done in the context of his home, and Baba talks about, when he talks about Manonash, he particularly highlights it's for everyone, but particularly those connected with me. And so, and of course, he's connected with everything, but for people who consciously come into his orbit, and Erich says that beautifully in his book, how important is no one gets to come over his threshold without past connections. So it's not that, that's what the choice is. So we have that connection with Baba. So now the other aspect in terms of this feminine aspect about, we'll focus on Narina and Elizabeth with regard to the center, because in the end of the Gnostic period, Baba asked Elizabeth and Narina to restart a journal, and that became the Meher Baba Journal. And they, of course, agreed, but they said, Baba, unless you contribute to it, who's going to read it? And so Baba agreed to contribute to it. And the first issue came out in November of 38. And the first discourse appeared. All the articles that he contributed turned out to be the discourses. And the first one was Avatar. And it described Avatar in the hierarchy, the roles of all. The one unique thing in it was Baba ended the paragraph that begins that this is a springtide of creation when the Avatar comes, not for just the advanced souls, but for everyone in the Advent, and ends with it that the age of sensation gave rise to the age of reason, or age of mind and logic. But now the age of reason is giving rise to the age of intuition. Now, intuition is generally, it's a feminine quality. And in India, the role of women is not as a high status in terms of a religious thinking of those positions. That's what Upasani was countering, and also Baba. And so in this case, in the Blue Bus Tour, Baba speaks through Narina in what's called the mystical language, which is by virtue of her intuitive connection with the impersonal God. And I got a little ahead of myself because I wanted to say one other thing. At the end of the Blue Bus, after 3 years, Baba returned the bus to Mehrabad, and he gave Sarosh the opportunity to drive it back because he had given the bus. And he said to Sarosh how fortunate he was because after my advent, after my manifestation, this bus will be worshipped like Krishna's chariot. And when I heard that, I said, the first thing was Krishna's chariot as the blue bus, who's in it? Who's Arjuna? And it was the Eastern and Western women Mandalay. So it was the Eastern and Western women Mandalay that were in the blue bus, which Elizabeth would sometimes drive. She drove also Baba's car. But so the women, as I said, were connected with establishing homes and this aspect of intuition. So they're playing a major role in the context of World War II. Baba described 1941, the last year of the Blue Bus Tour, as the most spiritually significant year of his advent. During that advent, during the beginning in January, he gave out the Seven Realities message, which is kind of the description of the basic tenets of all religions. And then he went into a very strict seclusion, and which became heightened on August 1st when he said that he would break his silence inwardly. He would speak the word inwardly. In June of that year, he had sent Elizabeth, Narina, and Nadine back to America. As his Western Mandalay, they were his instruments here. And things began happening in America. In India, just prior, two things, and this is very significant. Let me see if I can get this quick here. Get these in. Let me just think here. Oh, I need to share. I'm sorry. Well, I'll describe. What happened was in the fall, Arnavas happened to be in Bombay, and it heard that Narayan Maharaj was going to see some of his followers there. So she went and she mentioned to him that her brother was with Baba. And Narayan acknowledged that and mentioned Baba's silence, and then admonished them. And they said, why don't you have him help him to break his silence by the intensity of your love? She
was speechless.
Yeah, and it ties back to that thing where Baba said it was by virtue of the saints, the Mas, and also his followers, who during the Manonash period, when he was helpless, it was their support, their love and prayers that were part of him being able to do the Manonash. And I feel that's still the case. And Narayan was mentioning that because it gets underlined when a month or so later in October, the last meeting with Upasani, where Upasani turns over the powers of all the perfect masters to Baba, he pleads Baba to break his silence, and Baba won't do it. He actually breaks down and crying. Now, if the perfect masters can't get him to break his silence, who can? And this is 41. Yeah. And Baba was visiting him in a village called Dalgon near Sitar. And so a few weeks later, Baba now has the key, the powers of the five perfect masters. And the United States, who had been isolationists, fiercely isolationists, Pearl Harbor happens and America's thrust center stage. And so so besides the women being in the blue bus and elevating the status of women east and west, you also have in these articles in the Mayor Baba journals by Narina being in a position of giving to the world the dialogue between the disciple and the Lord. Instead of it being Krishna and Arjuna in two separate bodies in the world of duality created by the mind, we have Narina within her own awareness. And she was writing these articles when Baba was in the other room. This was through her own consciousness she was having. She was speaking out her portion as Narina through this connection. And at the same time, Baba's universal expressions of his contributions through his voice in her consciousness that constitute these articles. And Baba actually states in one of the articles that speaking through this mystical language through her, it's not so much the meaning, it's the source from where they come from. So, and he concludes that section by saying, it's not important in reading these articles that you understand them. What's important is that they're read with reverence, because it's in the vibration and the sequence of sounds that the import is conveyed. Would you want to speak a little bit about that vibration and resonance?
There is a line in there. It says, I here act in mind, in vibration, to make in you life grow. And that life grow is, they came through and there would be type written down, and life grow was like totally capitalized. I take any, I just believe in giving your mind a little vacation and just accepting that Baba said you don't need to understand it. And I love that. I don't know that he ever said that about anything else. And I just think it's such an extraordinary leap from the mind, the overactive mind, to intuition, and just that one line, I put into you the desire to use your intellect to serve me. And many times my intellect is not served beloved Baba. It worried. And and that service will initiate in you and in the world pure and selfless love. So it's like nothing that's ever happened before, as far as I'm concerned, nothing. And it's sort of like the new religion. It's in the heart, and each of us is his center. He says the center is in the heart. And the state of the world as I perceive it, looking out of my rosily eyes, is like, yipes. And so I thought, I don't understand how this is going to turn around, but Baba said he's already done the work. So I'm very willing to give my mind a little vacation and just listen to what he's blessed us with. And actually, Scott McKay went to Kitty Davy to ask her about Narina receiving this, because she was on the Blue Bus tours. And Kitty says, oh, we were complaining, it's not Narina's first language, the wording, we wanted to change the wording. And Baba said, you are children, speaking to the Mandali, this is for the future. They will appreciate it. So I would say, get used to it. It's a gift. And not understanding how he's going to manifest and pull it all together when it looks so, extraordinarily like, whoa, every day is kind of boom, boom, boom. And so anyway, I think it's because it's already been, it's in the archives, already typed up. It's like just waiting. It's waiting for us. And boy, I would, and I have been scooping it up whenever I can. I have this one line from it by my bed when I wake up, and it says, "It is time to awake the God in you." And I, I thought it's a good time to see that, you know, because what's awakening going to be like? We don't know, you know. And what is this that Baba's done that he's never done before? And has he worked through a woman before like this? I don't think so, you know. So anyway, he said he worked through her, and he would sign off on every transmission. I hate to call it transmission because it sounds like an automotive thing. You know, it kind of belittles it. But I've never seen Norina as a celebrity. Like people say, oh, she was princess. She wanted to, you know, she wanted to get rid of that title, and Baba made her continue the title. But she definitely was such a lover of Baba, you know. And in fact, before Baba landed, they says, oh, the master's coming, Narina. And she says, I'll not bow to any man. But the moment the boat docked, she was weeping and weeping and weeping and weeping. So they had an amazing connection. You can read about it too in Narina's Gift. If you have that book,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Yeah, yeah.
The book. You
Oh.
can show.
Oh, this, yeah. Mine is a little beat up.
Show it on the screen.
Interesting. Yeah.
Can I ask, you know, the quotes you just mentioned, where can we find them? Because I would like to reread it, what you just said now
Yeah.
and earlier.
That's in the spiritual diary.
Yeah, but
Norina's-
which one?
Yeah.
I have the book.
we will
but
give
I-
it. We will give it to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
I had it to.
The ones that came through during the Blue Bus time are they're in the Mayor Baba journals.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
you know, you can get access to it. Like
Yeah.
I have everything that's come through here, except they spent 2 weeks in Ranchi, India, and it was pouring rain. And every day there's 14 of these that came through, and they are like
10 additional. There is 4 in.
10 additional.
10.
2 of them, 4 of them had already been printed up. But I would just say, in a way, they're exquisitely baffling to the intellect. But boy, I just find some solace in them with the increasing
Yes.
stir up. I mean, Baba says when he comes, he stirs, and it's totally stirred.
What?
Is it written down or is it spoken? Did somebody else wrote them down?
She would write them sometimes in her hand. She would also have a typewriter. Sometimes it would be typed. I'm not sure all the circumstances, but then they would need to be prepared for publication, and that's where the other women were involved in helping them.
Some of them-
No. Now, there is a distinction actually between the mystical language that that she utilized in these articles during the Blue Bus tour. And when she came to America, she said that the West was not ready for the mystical language. And so the talks that she gave were described as thought transmission talks, which was a different quality. It was still Baba working through her, but there was a distinction there.
Would you say there's a theme that she gave, or a theme in her, one particular theme in her talks, or?
Well, it's Baba's messages, and he utilizes, the seeker, whether the Arjuna or the Narina, and his own. So the theme is basically pointing towards Manonash. That's what we're bringing up. And there's a selection of one article that I'm going to read from. I'm sorry, this is going a little long, but but
Jonathan, you have a question. I don't know if you want to,
yeah,
Bing has a hand up
yeah,
here.
but
I do want to.
Yeah, if I can ask a question, going back to Manonash, Baba arriving at Myrtle Beach, having seclusion. It was just a few weeks after that he had his auto accident in Prague, and then also you had mentioned on the other day about Agni, arriving, and somehow, you know. He had some something that he connected with her, possibly around Manonash. I didn't understand what that was.
I can address that. It's an interesting thing, and it gets back to the idea of home. When Bob arrived in America in 52, he asked one of the Westerners, I think it was Margaret Crass, to cable Agnes Barron in Marymount and ask her to come to Myrtle Beach on April 26th. Bob arrived here on April 21st and began his seclusion, but he wanted Agnes to come. Well, Agnes had already left. She was coming because she wanted to meet Baba. So she was on her way. She had a horrendous trip, almost was killed in an accident driving with a woman. And she got here on the 25th, not having no idea where the center was. She checked into a hotel, and the woman was the wife of the architect who had designed Baba's house. And so he put her in touch with Elizabeth, and she arrived on the 26th right on time. And her experience, she was a very practical person, and I can't, I wish I could, let's see.
Yeah, she had never met Baba prior to that,
Well,
No.
and in her meeting with Baba, it was like, ooh, it was over.
She didn't even know where the center was
Yeah.
when she
Yeah.
got there. And she stayed at a place for the night, and the person that the,
I just said that.
Huh?
I just said that. This is the
oh, you
person.
don't,
Yeah.
okay. That's all right.
The what was significant was she had a home. It was just mounted to a house, a home on Marymount, and she had told Baba had asked there to move. Originally, it was the New Life Center in LA, and Baba in 46, I think it was 46, asked them to go 2 hours distance. And Agnes had just happened to show up, and she went with them looking, and it was the first trip, and she actually spotted the land and became the caretaker. And she really didn't know that much about Baba at that time, but at one point she said she would keep Marymount for Baba through hell and high water. And Baba, when he saw her in 52, said, only God and I and Agnes know what she's gone through in order to keep Marymount. But it struck me, here was another woman, an extraordinary woman. She was watchdog of the West and Mansari of the East. She kept it, but again, it was a center that was a home. And I won't go into all the love work that Agnes did, but it was extensive in helping people.
Yeah, I view Marymount as both a place and a spirit that is infused with both Baba and Agnes's passion for many things. Sustainability, one is, various traits like that.
Well, the fact that Agnes, Baba called her Agni, and Agni is fire.
Right.
And Mayor Mount is on Sulphur Mountain, which is the element of fire. And right down the hill was where petroleum was first discovered in California. It oozed out of the mountains there. And, but even more significant, when you're talking about the accident, when Baba, when Agnes came, he gave instructions to the men mandali that they were to leave early in advance of him to go out to be in Marymount. And
Mhm.
Agnes said, well, everything's ready. But anyway, so Baba, that's what Baba did. And they arrived on the day that they arrived in Marymount. Baba had the accident. So
Right.
through the agency of his men mandali, Baba was present at Marymount at this and at Heartland Center, and of course from just being with Myrtle Beach. And so Baba talked about Marymount as he loved it second to Mare Spiritual Center. And also I think of the accident, we think of the suffering, but there's the suffering that Mara and he equally took on behalf of America. The other aspect of it was love's response in terms of Dr. Burleson and the people in the community.
Yeah.
That expression of love's response is a powerful thing that is there to this day. I'm sure you've all heard that the family that had the accident site property that had been antagonistic for many years because people were bowing down in their driveway or whatever.
You're
But
right.
they are now making that property available to the Heartland Center. So Baba's way of working, it's incredible. And again, I would say it's through the agency of that home, these powerful women that have done that. And I want to, there is one thing I wanted to share. And finally, I didn't finished cross-referencing. That's where I got off on this. But, and just want to find, let's see.
I'll just mention briefly that
Yeah, go ahead.
the fact that Mara's injuries were more life-threatening than Baba's, and I know of no other instance where Mara shared in physical suffering with Baba's work. It just really struck me when I visited there. I hadn't really thought about it.
Yeah. You want to mention that?
There is a film where the women that were in the accident, like they asked Mara what her memory of it was, and she said that Baba turned around and asked her, "Are you all right, Mara?" And she was holding her head and she says, "Yes, Baba, I'm all right." And then he asked her again, "Are you all right?" But the actual accident happened, so, but that was her experience of it. It was just the compassion of it. She was really concerned if he was all right, and he was concerned if she was all right. Really true love. It's beautiful to even hear it. It's to have it.
Burleson went in to see Baba after attending to Mara, and Baba was just smiling and and nodding and saying, "Go take care of Mara." And later, when Burleson saw the X-rays of Baba, he realized the pain threshold that he must have been going through, and is extraordinary. Anyway, that impressed Burleson no end.
In talking about the role of women, I was struck in Erich's book. He was talking about the role of men and women, and from the perspective of man. But I just like to read it because it has to do with when you were talking about what was the overall thing that it to me the overall thing about the the Mayor Baba Journal's articles of an arena is experientially giving us an opportunity to utilize the intuition, either in hearing it or in our own intuition, to establish that inner connection that we have with God. Bob, and I'll be talking just a little about the life messages, because Baba in the life messages, which the first life message was in February 6th of 52, and it's titled Manonash, and he explains Manonash. And he basically, the key to that is that in the future, it'll be through our inner contact with God that we continue on the path to Manonash, even in Baba's absence. But there's so many things that come up in my mind, but yeah.
The life messages, are they all about Manonash? Or
No. The life messages, maybe the life messages. Let me. I can
Tell
pull
me
them up.
that first one about.
Let me just take a second here. So this is the first life circular. It begins with four phrases. God is everywhere and does everything. God is within us and knows everything. God is without us and sees everything. God is beyond us and is everything. All that can be said and has been said and will be said by those who live and experience that state is that when the false self is lost, the real self is found. That the birth of the real can only follow the death of the false, and that dying to ourselves, the true death which ends all dying, is the only way to perpetual life. This means that when the mind with its satellites, desires, cravings, longings, is completely consumed by the fire of divine love, then the infinite, indestructible, indivisible, eternal self is manifested. This is Manonash, the annihilation of the false, limited, miserable, ignorant, destructible I, to be replaced by the real I, the eternal possessor of infinite knowledge, love, power, peace, bliss, and glory. In its unchangeable existence, Manonash, which is bound to result in this glorious state, when plurality goes and unity comes, ignorance goes and knowledge comes, binding goes and freedom comes, we are all permanently lodged in this shoreless ocean of infinite knowledge, and yet all are infinitely ignorant of it until the mind, which is the source of this ignorance, vanishes forever. For ignorance ceases to exist when the mind ceases to exist. I have tried with my utmost for the achievement of Manonash, and I can say in all truth that I feel satisfied with the work done. This satisfaction is due to the feeling I have of having regained my old life Mayor Baba state, yet retaining my new life ordinary state. I have gained the knowledge, strength, and greatness that I had in the old life, and retained the ignorance, weaknesses, and humility of the new life. This union of the old and new life states has given birth to life, and life that is eternally old and new. So this life, this capitalized, he refers to that, obviously in all caps, and there's 71 life messages that stretch from February 652 to January 15th, 1969. And so we are familiar with a lot of the content of the life messages, But the totality of the life period, which was the last period of Baba's life, the next part of this message gives some a direct inclination of what I think is the significance of Baba's life period. Let me read this too. Life for me now means free and obligationless life. Life of a master giving orders and that of a servant in all humility. The feeling of absolute conviction that we are all eternally one, indivisible, and infinite in essence, and with it a feeling of separateness from the real omnipresent self through ignorance. Life of God in essence and that of man in actions. Life of strength born of inherent knowledge, of oneness, and of weakness born of binding desires. My efforts for Manonash have been positive, and the result of Manonash will be positive. But the actual concrete manifestation of this result, I leave entirely to the divine sanction. Where, how, and when the result will be, I leave entirely to the divine decree. It may be at any moment, month, year, or age. This is the part that's very significant for the life period. Although the Manonash work is done fully and completely, and the result must and will definitely come 100% to my satisfaction, I now give freedom to each and all who are connected with me to choose what manner of life they henceforth wish to live. They are free to either live with me or, and of course, obey my orders, or to live away from me and obey my orders, to lead the life I tell them to lead, or to lead their own lives in any way they please. In other words, completely free from orders of any kind from me. No matter what choice he makes, everyone shall share when the real freedom comes at any moment by the grace of God. And then the result will bring freedom to us all in proportion to our merits of love, faith, and service. So what the life period did was, I see Baba empowering his lovers to make choices. And how do we make those choices? We have to look within. And so the nature of, well, at the time that this happened in 52, Baba was still in the body, and he would have to say, well, remember, I'm not this body. You know, he'd have to remind people. But people continued to look to Baba. And when Baba dropped the body, then they looked to the Mandali naturally. And the Mandali would give advice and love and share everything with them. It was a very rich experience. But they would also say, now remember, it's Baba that you really have, you know. And now I think the pandemic was the dividing line where we all had to look within when we couldn't go out and about. That that has marked the point where these messages of Narina, the intuitive language, and the whether we read her articles or not, people are becoming more inward, more intuitive. I think generally, that's Baba's work in the world now. And what we owe to do is to look within ourselves, and instead of allowing the external world to impinge on our internal experience and heighten our conflicts, to the degree that we can find solace within ourselves, and then project that piece outwardly and realize that everything is happening according to Baba's plan. And our responsibility is to cultivate that inner calm. And Steve, that's another thing, that's one of the overarching things in the messages is that it's to, yeah,
There's a lot of the same themes about his teachings, but that book, my opinion, always short, that going with it and looking up, looking at our own Sanskaric patterns and tendencies, the things that get in the way of love.
yes,
That's what jumped out at me.
yeah. Exactly. And the other thing that this is kind of underline it, the life circular number 3, Baba just underlines the importance of this message. God's blessings and my love to you all on this, my first real birthday. That was according to the Zoroastrian calendar. And the other thing about the messages of Narinas and their significance were hidden in plain sight. They were there, but not really accessed. But another thing that was hidden in plain sight was the fact that Baba completed his Manonash for the benefit of the West. But who knew? In all my exposure, I had not known that until Jamie and Zoe Newell found that letter of Elizabeth where Baba said that he needed to be in seclusion to complete Manonash work for the benefit of the West. And, but why she didn't mention that, whether Baba told her or not, but I think it was just because Baba was present and people were focused on Baba. But Baba didn't, Baba wanted it noted, and he noted it publicly. And I want to read this because to me, when I read this, it was so powerful. Baba was here in 52, and after his seclusion, he met with his lovers and also the public. And on the week, it would have been the 16th, a man by the name of Anton Barzlag met Baba, had his darshan as a reporter for the Myrtle Beach News. And he wrote an article in the newspaper, and this would have been read. It was on page 6. And because so many people from the community, prominent people because of Elizabeth's status, had met Baba during that public darshan. And so this is what Anton Barzlag published. And who are your neighbors? Mayor Baba. This is a beautiful essay. There is a beautiful essay by Maurice Maeterlinck called The Silence, if that's right, in which the poet-philosopher expands that in silence, man is nearest to reality, to God. We don't know each other yet, he exclaimed to a friend, because we have never dared to remain silent together. Thomas Carlyle eulogizes silence, the great empire of silence, higher than the stars, deeper than the mystery of death. The importance attached to silence in worship by the Quakers is well known. John Greenleaf Whittier expressed this so gracefully yet concisely in his lovely poem, First Day Thoughts. In calm and cool and silence, once again I find my old accustomed place among my brethren, where perchance no human tongue shall utter words. There by syllabled silence, let me hear that still small voice which reached the prophet's ear. Read in my heart a still diviner law than Israel's leaders on its tablets saw.
And here is what Meher Baba, who has arrived from Pimplegaon, India, at Meher Center on the lakes in Myrtle Beach, has to say about silence. God has been everlastingly working in silence, unobserved, unheard, except by those who experience his infinite silence. If my silence cannot speak, of what avail would be speeches made by the tongue?
Oh, sorry.
The very moment when he thinks my speaking would be heard universally, God will make me break my silence. Meher Baba has been in silence for many years, 27, we were told, and still is. Though he feels that he has been successful in his efforts for the achievement of Manonash, the annihilation of the mind, the losing of oneself in order to find oneself, the time has not come yet to break his silence. Meher Baba leaves the manifestation of the result entirely to the divine decree. It may be at any moment, year, or age, but he feels that the result of his work must bear fruit sooner or later. It will bring freedom to all, freedom from ignorance, and it will be the knowledge that everything is one with God, entailing infinite love, power, bliss, and peace, which we've always possessed without realizing it. This, as far as we gather from our smattering of the subject, is the quintessence of Meher Baba's message. It is well nigh impossible to give a clear conception of the underlying principle in a short space, especially for Western minds, not used to the Eastern religious philosophy. The oneness with all comprehending God is best symbolized by comparison with the sun. When the sun rays are playing on earthly objects, each ray seems to be a separate unit, whereas in reality, it is only seemingly and temporarily separated from that great source of all light, the sun. When reading the booklet and pamphlet graciously presented to the visitors of the Meher Baba Center last Friday, those who were acquainted with the great Hindu epic, Mahabharata, will recollect the Upanishads of the Bhagavad Gita. These dialogues of Sri Krishna and Arjuna belong to the yoga writings, and the principal lesson to be drawn from the Gita is that the spiritual man needs not be a hermit, but oneness with the divine life can be achieved in the midst of worldly affairs. The impediments for that oneness are not external, but within ourselves. Like many others, we were happy to avail ourselves of the opportunity offered to meet Meher Baba. He is a slender, dark complexion, mild-mannered and simple man, besides an extraordinary kindness in his face and bearing. We seem to detect something indefinable in his appearance, which we will call, for lack of a better word, transcendental. He seemed to sense that we would like to ask a question and motioned his hand in acquiescence. The handicap of his persistent silence was ingeniously solved by means of a small board showing an alphabet on which Meher Baba pointed out various letters. An interpreter translated the answer in spoken words, and when the few minutes allotted to us were past, and then the few minutes were past, still those few minutes left an impression with us. The more we pondered his answer, the more meaning we found in his words. There are often Quaker meetings where no ministry occurs, where nobody feels moved to utter words, and frequently these constitute the most satisfactory meetings of worship. In the silence, heart flows to heart. And there is, as the old Quaker used to say, a web over the meeting. We do not know if and what ritual or service the adepts of Meher Baba practice, but it is certain that a silent meeting of worship with Baba present would be an unforgettable experience, as he potently emphasizes the need for all of us of ever increasing communion with God.
How's that for an account? I mean,
Paper article we started out with.
that's all that newspaper article. Yeah, Anton Barzlog was a heptologist. He studied snakes. I don't think it's an old, it wasn't an old Southern name. He's from Connecticut, and he must have been down here researching snakes. I don't know, or he lived here for a while, but he was there. And I mean, Baba had him really put an exclamation point on what he was doing. And it took a while for anyway. What? Yeah, all of these things, of these life messages are on the Trust website under Books by Baba.
Right.
Just go down, Life Messages
Right.
of Mayor Baba. This article is the sixth life message. Baba Baba had the article reproduced and put out as a life message.
One that you just on the previous slide, where was that from? The same article, the one where you said the keys to, where we state the keys to not God, Manonash is spending the company of the saints. It was the one that you just
Yeah, that first one, that's the first life message.
first life message.
Yeah. So first life message is all about Manonash and giving us freedom. And then the third one is about his blessing on his birthday. And then the fifth one is actually the complicated free life. And it's interesting, I can read that, but it's you're probably the thing that's interesting is they're not direct orders, they're more like guidance of how we can lead our life. But of course, Baba continued to give orders to people to
First life message.
in 1952, February, just right after. It actually mirrors the day of his dropping the body. The Manonash ended on January 31st, and on the 6th, 7 days later, he writes this, the first life message. 1952. Well, and I don't know, he didn't necessarily said that it was still going on, but he completed it for the East in his home in the East in January 31st, and then he completed it for the benefit of the West. And 2 years later, let me just do another quick thing here. Oh, whoops. Good, I must have closed out that sheet. Excuse me a sec.
To stop your share, Jonathan.
Let's stop the share thing.
There.
And let's,
Is that what you wanted? I hope.
no, I have another one called Mayor Baba Quotes, and that,
Sorry.
no, that's okay. Uh, there it is. Somehow I closed it out by mistake.
There is one line that I was so amazingly struck from these messages that came to Narina. This mystical language in I is in I, the experience of God. This mystical language in I is in I, the experience of God. And I thought, wow, that's saying it pretty outright.
So this is, you're all familiar with this, but it's in the context of all that we've said, it's useful. There is no, this is in Satara when Baba gave up the board. There is no reason for at all for any of you to worry. Baba was, Baba is, Baba will also be eternally existent. Severance of external links does not mean the termination of internal links. It was only for establishing the internal connection that external contacts had been maintained until now. The time has now come for being bound in the chain of internal connections. Hence, external contact is no longer necessary. It is possible to establish the internal links by obeying Baba's orders. I give you all my blessings for strengthening these internal links. I am always with you and I am not away from you. I was, am, and will remain eternally with you, and it is for promoting this realization that I have severed external contact. This will enable all persons to realize truth by being bound to each other with internal links. Oh, my lovers, I love you all. It is only because of my love for creation that I have descended on earth. Let not your hearts be torn asunder by my declarations concerning the dropping of my body. On the contrary, accept my divine will cheerfully. You can never escape from me, even if you try to escape from me. It is not possible to get rid of me. Therefore, have courage and be brave. If you thus lose your hearts, how will it be possible for you to fulfill the great task which I have entrusted to you? Be brave and spread my message of love far and wide to all quarters in order to fulfill my divine will. Let the words Baba, Baba, Baba come forth from the mouth of every child, and let their ignorance be reduced to ashes by the burning flame of my love. Come together in order to fulfill my will by taking your stand on truth, love, and honesty, and be worthy of participating in my task. I give you all my blessing for spreading my message of love. How do we share?
Jonathan,
Did I share that or did I not share that? I don't know.
oh, we were not seeing it,
You
no.
were not, sorry about that. I didn't,
Okay, we heard it.
okay. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes, Betty.
I'm interested in what Baba had to say about the significance of his seclusion at the center before before the activities happen.
Well, that significant, when I first heard of it, that he was in seclusion for 2 weeks prior to coming, I thought he was making himself at home at the center. But then I found out through Mani, Heather's book on Mani, there was a quote where during the 2 weeks, he took the women Mandali out on excursions in Myrtle Beach. They went to a kiddie park, and this, I don't know whether Bing's still on, but they went to a drive-in movie. And the movie was a movie called Flaming Feather. And it was a Western about Indians that were rustling cattle. And of course, the America, the settlers were, there was a battle going on, and it was because a unscrupulous white person was utilizing them to steal these cattle. It's not, we didn't get to see the whole movie, but the point was, it was about the relationships with the Indians and the violence associated with that just before they left on the Trail of Tears. So it was a significant, it wasn't a coincidence, I don't think, that was the movie that the women and Baba saw. But they also went to an oceanarium, and they went to Brook Green Gardens. So that's why tomorrow we're going to, at 10:30, we're going to make a trip down to Brook Green. Yeah, that's why we're going. Yeah, because he would often do that. He would sometimes would be full. No. And women talked about playing croquet with him in the guest quarters, and so Baba was very, actually in the mystical language, some of his articles, he says, I'm an ordinary person. I just happen to be God, and he's asking us to realize that, and we're that's the same thing, it's just, and actually that the, let's see, quotes.
So you're saying he wasn't secluding himself in a cabin and
No.
he
Well,
was,
I mean, part of the time he might have been, but he was,
What do you think is known about the process? Like as far as was there, like how was, somebody said that they not feeling good about it. Is there anything known about the process?
in terms of, I would say, if I was saying what I think it's our own nature, well, I should say it's the nature of God and his creation. He established creation to make use of it, to make use of us, to draw everything back to himself in consciousness. So he's doing it all. But when it comes to the process, it's basically we are creating the problem by being attached to our mind. Baba says in these articles that there's only one I, and it's the mind that creates the separation. And so the process of giving in to allow him to make use of us rather than us thinking that we're doing what we're doing. No, he's working through us. And he works through both good and bad. So the startling thing I had when I came to Baba was, Baba said, be honest and natural. And that was a challenge to me, because we're so conventional, and but when you start to get an inclination something is bad, you put the check on it. You don't become natural. But doing something seemingly bad can have good results, and doing something that's seemingly good, if it's not sincere, it's goody two shoes or whatever, can have bad results. So what's important is to be honest and natural, to be who we are. You want to do that? Be you. There's this one word, just for the heck of it, there's this one phrase that we put, well, actually Scott put this one to music, and it goes, be you, be real, be one. Be you, be real, be one. Be one in all, in I, in use of me. be one and all in I and use of me. Be you, be real, be one. Be you, be real, be one. Be who we are. That's all he's asking us, surrender it to him and stop making the judgments.
Just do that. One is this one, 5 words that is very helpful to a life. Oneness
is rest in being. Oneness is rest in being. Being is rest in oneness. Being is rest in oneness. Oneness is rest in being. Oneness is rest in being.
That one
This
said-
might, this,
That's
okay.
that's more understandable many times. You just have to allow that. Baba said it's the way God talks directly, and just feel whatever you feel with it. I mean, you could feel frustrated to read some of it, but I remember one time over the course of the pandemic, we would meet on Baba Zoom and we would read this. Well, only one time when the reading was finished, I felt like every soul and every atom in my body, every cell was nourished. And I don't think of myself as a bunch of cells walking around. So, I mean, that wasn't even it was like this thought came. But it is a deep effect on one. And I find that even Baba quotes that I've known for a long time have more force because of what is ever coming through this reading. I read them to myself. And I love the fact that they're already in print and you can read them to yourself. You just read with reverence. I take them as Baba's words, so I read them with reverence and I don't need to understand it. I mean, it's like incredible a freedom to it. I think, okay, Baba. So as everything around me gets more and more preposterous, like, wow, what's going to happen next? Or what just happened? It's like, whoa. But just focus on Baba, and these are an increasing blessing. Yeah.
See the word brave. I saw that before in one quote. You can't get rid of me, even if you try. I'm always
Yeah.
with you. So therefore be brave. And this last sentence, because something about a real man. Oh yeah, the last one.
Yeah, I was just going to read this. Bo,
I just thought that was.
this is interesting.
So that is how it works. Baba must have had a good laugh at our expense.
I'll read this whole. I'll read.
Dare to get
There you go.
over an illusion of a real man. Just-
Yeah, this is from Erich's book. Devana just came out with, and it's interesting. Erich, they actually thought he was going to be a girl. The astrologer thought he was going to be a girl. And when he grew up, he was very close with his mother doing, mother kind of things, helping her out. And he often dresses women and the child. And it was a theme that he felt it was his preparation for how he was to take care of Baba. But this is from as in Mandalay Hall, he brings up, and it's useful because we're talking about intuition being a feminine quality, but it's something the feminine and masculine needed to be developed alternatively by both sexes. So, but what is a man? What is a man? What is a real woman? Sex gender is nothing but child's play. Today I am a man and tomorrow I will be a woman. What is needed is to have the characteristics of the male, such as courage, daring, strength, and boldness. It is immaterial whether you are a female or a male. That has nothing to do with it, unless and until you have the daring to have your head on your palm, you won't be able to approach him. Even a frail woman or a frail man, when he begins to love the Lord, gets that daring, that strength, which surpasses all understanding. Remember when we started the morning session with Baba telling the Mandali that we should love him like the women loved him? Well, that stuck with me because I didn't like the implication of that. Mani and Goher and Rano had come over here and they had started asking me certain things they always wondered about. Suddenly the thought cropped up in my mind and I asked them, can you tell me how the women loved Baba? They gaped at me and they burst out laughing. Did he tell you that too? Because on our side, he would say that to us. If we only loved him like the men loved him, we wouldn't suffer. So that is how it works. Baba must have a good laugh at our expense. But the truth remains, only those souls who have dared to get out of the orbit of illusion are real men. Of course, we cannot call ourselves real men, but once you are that, you must become a woman. You must become the beloved of the beloved, subservient, submissive, obedient, sacrificing, giving your all. These attributes must be inculcated. Only then can one enter into the game of divine love. We must, in essence, lose our conception of gender identity in order to rise to the heights of love. What was most interesting was that in the end, only the women disciples had the courage and daring to stand at the foot of the cross and witness Jesus' suffering. Most of the men, including Peter, had fled and were in hiding. See how it is. The women had such love that they could forget about saving themselves. That is being a real man. A man is he or she who dares to transcend his sex. That is what is so fascinating to me, the dilemma. You must become a man so that you can become a woman, the beloved of the beloved.
That's out of Eric's book?
That's out of Erich's book.
And who's talking about?
That's Erich. Erich is done. Do you want to take a second to stretch, or is it? Let's just pause for, what time is it now?
43.
2:45, just for 5 minutes. And then we'll come back on. What I thought I'd like to do is read excerpts from one of the articles that Narina wrote called Utilize the Divine in You, which speaks very directly on Manonash way back in the Blue Bus Tour time. So all these themes of the manifestation, breaking of silence, the manifestation, but those came up during the Blue Bus time and eventually manifested with the Manonash and the life messages. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. That will be 2:50, 10 to 3.
Is this a break now? So I'll
Yeah,
pause recording and,
No, I was just gonna let people stretch and
okay,
whatever, and then we'll just be back in.
okay.
five-
So
4
I'll
minutes.
pause the recording and then we'll start it up again when you.
Okay, thanks.
Shall I heat it up? Or do you want your?
Oh, I might. I can probably eat it just as it is.
Going up back and wash my car.
Okay.
Eating that today. I ended up having to help somebody get a ride to the gas station.
Oh,
That was nice.
understand. Glad that you can make part of it, though. We'll see you tomorrow.
Pretty sure. I'm
Okay.
still, right now, I'm trying to At 9 o'clock, I have to go to storage and drop stuff off at storage.
Okay, I've got to resume. I said it, and I got to resume the meeting.
I'm sorry, okay.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
But we'll be
So
in
how much
touch.
longer are you gonna be?
I don't know.
So she's gonna
Not
keep
too
going.
much longer. Just, I think mainly to read this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jay Belvedere. Betty?
Yeah, yes,
Yeah, so I'm just trying to reconvene everybody. Okay, Marcia, we need to start the meeting again.
Hey, man. Cameraman? No.
Hey, Steve? Steve?
Oh, I saw it. Wasn't it great? You might not like it. I thought it was funny. I can't believe it was that out there. I'm sure it was. Somebody was stepping up for my favorite.
Hey, Jim.
With the business coordinator, or you had it earlier before?
yeah. I think I'll pause again and restart. No, okay, now we are
Okay,
recording.
you got recording?
Yeah, now,
Um,
Hmm.
okay. I'm sorry, folks, it's for some reason it's not projecting, but did this come?
But
Huh?
Johnson, we can see it.
You
yes,
can see it? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
You're very good.
I
So,
think you just have to activate that window where this particular text is showing. That's all you have to do. Just have a double click. It may be iconized.
in the which,
On your screen, it may be iconized.
let
Uh,
me stop share and reshare again. Maybe that'll do it. Um,
We see it now.
Yeah, you see it. Okay, our screen here doesn't, but I'll go ahead and read it. So this is one of the mystical language articles that Narina wrote, and it's excerpts from it. Well, actually, we'd read these articles on Thursdays at 3 p.m. on Baba Zoom, and we'll be reading this one in full this coming week. And anyway, so it's on. It's called "Utilize the Divine in You." Yeah, we do it on Thursdays at 3 o'clock. There's a Zoom meeting. It's called Mayor Baba Blue Bus Mystical Language Tour. And so we're just going through them sequentially. Utilize the divine in you. God in use in us is He real. How do we know this? By being in us, realizing in I the divine order to self-realize in us God. What is God? God is use. God on earth is here to make us self-realize what He is, to make us see and really know through our own self-realizing experience what is the term God. That term has been worshipped throughout age and time. That term that has been worshipped throughout age and time is more or less a term when it is in us the idea. The use of this term is to live and to practice the real life, and that is to serve with the I that has to God-conscious react in I. This I has to be given. It has to be annihilated. It has to be used. That what is the meaning of use is self-annihilation. To self-annihilate means giving up our own I, the self, the I as spirit existence. It is all the same. It is use. All has to be annihilated before his own I. When we in us know, see, and feel, we conscious realize in us that he is here for the sake of us, to make us, for the sake of us, to make us be the real self, the divine human being, conscious of our own divine origin.
To make it clear once over, I quote Meher Baba's own words. Whatever I hear say is true as I speak through you in mind, that is in pure winning order to self-annihilate before me. I know that you win when you capitulate before me. I know that you self-act pure and real when you self-design in you, for me, your own I as use for me. Be tranquil and confide in this real I, that I, here in this life of my I, here in this life of my divine human existence, do self-conscious in you realize. This is to all to be of use as a good warning. Give these notes to everyone to read, as it is true that I in mind, in man, conscious, realize the divine I. This be the life in anguish, the strife in pain, the lure to resurrect, the warning in war, the realization of God in some proportion that is of use to the human mind in the stage as evolution in which it is. Let all this be made clear, that I have not come to preach and to make new forms of religion and to create a new philosophy that has to bring in intellect as the head, as the mind, as the finite order of thinking, a new show of realization as mere understanding. No, 1,000 times no. It has to make you all experience that which is the divine I in the human realizing work of I as finite as the finite existence. God is something far more than truth in use as the realizing order in mind as divine knowledge. That is clear when it is realized within, in that same I that is more than intellect, more than intelligence, more than finite dual knowing, seeing, feeling. This wonder of realizing within, in mind, the divine order in being as knowing that one is the God within the human creation, is a deep realizing show that I do not ask anyone to realize without the sure guide to help on to its pure state of non-existence. This pure state of non-existence is a far more real and good and pure I state within the human eye than anyone could possibly imagine. What it is, I shall reveal. What it has to show in you as the disciple that has to serve in this I as the divine instrument without I is to be shown. When I say it is to be shown, I mean that we have to be what we say that we owe to be, what we know, what we see, what we feel. So it is no more a false existence that has its pure origin in the divine I as false show of I, as unreal show of I in mind as being, but it is truth realized as state in full. That is all I here have to say. It is time that we realize, and to realize means to live, to give, to create, to be useful, to give one's own unending joy in being for the self-use in I of anyone. I can say this to you who have seen me in so many occasions, dispensing this love that is unending. You have seen me give this love that is unending to so many who do not care for this kind of love. You have seen me give it and squander it in form of grace that is showing the truth, that is showing God's oneness in manyness, that is showing truth in one all existence, that is divine living love. That oneness state of free existence is a more or less imaginary show when it is not realized. Therefore, I am here to make good. This is to say, whether it is I in you, I in him, I in her, I in the east, I in the west, it is all the same I. This I has to realize truth. This I has to self-react in I that is, was, and ever is I, one. The I as God. This must not be the old romance with one's own I and someone else's finite I, but it must be the full show in which all of us are participating, and that is the self in I. That is the mind in being. It is the divine existence that in us has become conscious and realized. This is my promise, and I shall in every way realize it. This is my full promise, which I shall in everyone keep, and in everyone react, and in every way realize. Let this be published for the use of all who have not at all yet understood who is the man that has come to show in I, for the use of I, what is truth, what is God.
Hey, Baba.
Okay, Baba.
There- I think, well, tomorrow, as I said, at 10:30, if you'd like to come, we have a few free passes as well if there's anyone short. But the, if, for the, but anyway, we'll meet at 10:30 and there's a few cars, so we have some spaces where I can decide. But we'll meet in the parking lot out here at 10:30 and go down. Okay?
How long do you stay, you think?
But will people go back and there's a number of cars, so people can go. It depends how, if you really want to be free, then you probably should drive down on your own.
Yeah.
So you're going to Brook Green Gardens tomorrow, Jonathan?
Yeah, just kind of that was what Baba did with
Mhm.
Mara and the women and it's, I always love going to Brook Green Gardens. Baba's presence is very much there. You know, he had that wonderful experience of sharing that story of under the tree that it reminded him of when he was the Buddha and an old woman gave him some pudding. He said that woman was to Buddha as Babajan was to me.
Wow.
Fact that he had that memory and shared it at Brook Green, and also the fact that that was in 56 that he did that, but in 52, the fact that he went there with Mara during his seclusion definitely makes Brook Green a special place of his presence. And, you know, the tremendous number of people, Brook Green is an incredibly beautiful place. I don't know if you haven't been there. It was obtained by the Hartford Huntington family. It was 9 former rice plantations and goes from the ocean. It's a total of 9,000 acres. And his wife was a superb sculptress. And it was during the Depression, and they gave commissions to sculptors all over the US and the world to come and do sculptures in the gardens. So it's a botanical garden, it's floral displays, sculpture located throughout the gardens. And they have a open air zoo. It's just a wonderful place. They have like 450 volunteers, core staff, and people come from all over the world. It's a major attraction. And yeah, the boat rides on, pardon me? Yeah. And well, but in this case, it was Babajan giving him a kiss. Ba-
Got some at Brook Green Gardens.
No, he was telling the story. He said it reminded him of when he was the Buddha. No. But in the past, in Buddha's lifetime, Buddha gained enlightenment from an old woman who gave him pudding, just like Baba gained enlightenment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think they have a badger there too.
Walking around.
Yeah, you go ahead. We can take that. Yeah, where's that? Yeah. So, where's that? Okay, Jai Baba. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
It was
Uh,
starting from the beginning, not being able to it was quite an odyssey. Actually, you know, that reminded me of how the mind is an odyssey, that takes us wherever in the relative until, like Odysseus, we eventually get home and we're with Penelope and all is good. We're with Baba and everything is good.
There's still precaution.
One question, Jonathan.
Well, wait a second. Again. Can you step
Yeah.
away? Step away.
Just
Well,
one question.
yes, Prakash.
Yeah, when we say the annihilation of mind, we are just simply talking about the annihilation of all thoughts and desires from there. But mind as an instrument that has helped us in evolution to get to wherever we are would still exist, except the focus
Actually,
needs to be
actually,
removed.
Prakash, I can read this quote again. Let me just find it here. Yeah, just, yeah, but bear with me a second.
Sure, sure.
Let's see, where do I get? Here, share. Other quotes. So here it says, mind, this is a discourse that Baba gave on Manonash in June when he was announcing that he was going to go on the Manonash. Mind is never transformed. Ego is transformed only once. By ego is meant astiva, meaning the real I. The transformation should be clearly understood. Mind cannot be transformed. Why? Because it is not one itself. Mind survives by desires, thoughts, and is made up of impressions. Ego is one in itself, but this real ego, the real I, is now bound by the mind. And this mind, which is made up of false impressions, makes the real I think itself false. Mind makes you think of birth, death, happiness, misery, etc. as real things, but nothing can be more false than this. When the mind dies, the false ego is transformed into reality. The real ego is never born and never dies. Ego is always real, but due to the mind, it feels and acts as limited and false I. So in other words, it's the mind that brings us back reincarnating because of the stored impressions. But once the mind is destroyed, then we don't come back.
Yeah, that's beautiful, beautiful. So now I always wonder about the annihilation of it. It looks like
About,
it's a
yeah,
death that it looks like it's a death of the mind. Um, yeah, which lets the real I be made aware of. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's an amazing thing. I remember when I was studying Vedanta, they said the greatest fear is on the sixth plane when you finally when you're confronted with having to give up the dual relationship, in this case with the beloved, but you have to give that up and experience Manonash, Fana, but
Mhm.
then it's the master that tells you this is now you experience the reality and you're at peace.
Mm,
Something
beautiful.
like that.
Yeah, no, wonderful.
But
Thank you
that
for
fear, but being confronted with having to give up that which we've been so attached to.
mm,
Yeah.
mm. No, having, living in this gross form and all, there is always a tendency to visualize everything has a form, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the mind also seems to have some sort of form, which may be very subtle or whatever.
Yeah.
But so the destruction of it would amount to, you know what? Does it sort of burn itself up?
Yeah.
Lose its
And
form?
we, I was thinking about when Baba is emphasizing that the importance of the mystical language is the source, that the
Bye,
that the
David.
when
David started.
when Krishna and Arjuna, you had two two souls and bodies, the Lord and the devotee. In Narina's case, you have those two voices within her own consciousness. But what Bob is saying, what's important is the source. It transcends even that dual experience that goes on in her consciousness or in her mind. So it's, I mean, it is unfathomable. This whole thing is unfathomable. That's what gets back to the beginning of the thing where the silence, the beginning of the meetings of silence, and Spandiar just saying it's just love. He was so funny. And when Esfandiar came to those meetings, he wanted to come and just see a normal meeting, like a Baba video or something, and just experience that. And then people would want him to get up and talk. So one time he got up on the stage and he just refused to talk. And he said, well, just be silent. So, the meetings are usually an hour and a half long. So we all sat in silence for an hour and a half. And it was a powerful experience, to be in the presence.
Definitely, yes.
Oh, yes.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah,
I like what you shared right here. Thank you.
Thank you.
But you were
Thank you,
there alone.
Prakash. So appreciate you being here.
She needed quiet.
No, it's a pleasure. We
It
love
got a
your
little
reading.
chaotic. I tell you,
Her family was just here.
Yeah.
it was quite an experience. Did anybody else want to share anything? And
Oh, right.
They just run her ragged when they.
Oh, my God.
Hi, we do.
hi, all right.
Hi, this was incredible.
You're
I-
amazing. You have so much inside your brain, but it's all great stuff. It's not bad stuff. And when I look at you, you kind of always have a smile. It's so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
don't know.
owe
We're
that.
in
I owe that.
California.
I always said I owe that to my mother. She had.
That's great. We know Rosalie because we've been on a lot of Zooms with her, but we don't know you as well, Jonathan. And this has been just an amazing. What did you do when you were making a living and stuff in the world?
I was always a kind of a jack of all trades. I was involved with meditation for a number of years. And so I've always been kind of a caretaker. I was a caretaker at Marymount for 2.5 years.
Really?
And a caretaker here.
So
I wrote I don't know whether I wrote a book called The Spiritual Abode for One and All, which is the story of Mayor Spiritual Center. When Baba accepted the center, he accepted it as he wrote to Elizabeth. She described the center to him, and he wrote back, everything you describe about Myrtle Beach, I personally and spiritually approve of and sanction. All my lovers should cooperate to make Myrtle Beach the spiritual abode for one and all. So what was significant about Baba coming, not only making himself at home on the center, going out into the town, going to Brook Green Gardens, 35 miles away, he made himself at home in the whole area. And
wow.
He also did Manonash through all of that, just amazing to me.
How many years have you been with Baba?
Well, actually, as is the case with everybody, what, as Erich said,
Right.
anyone who comes across this, they have
Consciously.
So, well, I just have to say that my parents, my dad was a golfer, and in 1962, he moved to Myrtle Beach to retire and play golf. And we lived just a few doors down from the center in Briarcliff. And I used to like to go out in the woods and be silent. So I would go down the beach, not knowing I was going onto the center, and sit under the trees in the shade. And so that was my first physical contact with the center. And then later I met Elizabeth, and through my mother, she got to know Elizabeth by virtue of the connection in Briarcliff. And anyway, so I met with Elizabeth for several hours.
So how old were you then when your dad moved there?
18.
Wow.
Now I'm 81.
Wow. In our language, we say mazel tov. Blessed be, you sweet man. Blessed
Well,
be.
it's all of us, you know, God, I tell you, people
It
still.
is all of us,
You
but
know, the
when
other
you
day I
can
was giving a
stand
tour.
there,
Yeah, I was giving a tour to a guy 26 years old, born in Conway. And, you know, and he comes in and it was like he'd been a Baba lover all his life, you know.
wow.
Well, sometimes we are.
Yeah,
Yeah, we are.
sometimes we
And
are.
lifetime
Many
after
lives, yeah.
yeah.
Jeff says, look around the room. This is who you'll hang with the next 700 years.
Well, you know, this is an interesting thing, you know, I always, Baba, you know, it's an interesting thing, you know, that I didn't mention this in the talk, but you know, when Baba gave us that empowerment to choose to do whatever, go wherever we do, express our sanskaras and and enjoy that freedom according with our love, faith, and service. To the degree that people, we don't make that choice to look within, to Baba within us, the turmoil of our mind is his turmoil. He has to
Yeah.
endure. And he's really enlisting us to, you know, take him at his word. And I really find in my own personal experience of reading the mystical language for a number of years now, is that instead of, there is an understanding aspect, but what's more is that gradually things dawn and I feel from the heart that are
Yeah.
just kind of understandings that are of a different nature. And it really becomes more, it empowers you to live in the moment and you make your plans, you have your expectations, but whatever happens, you go with that. It's always better to go with what Baba wants. You know, when we try to do it, you know, if I used to would say, well, I'm supposed to be doing this. No, you do whatever happens. So
It's
today was
funny
a
because
case. Today
the
was a
three
case
of
in
us on the
point.
screen,
Yeah.
Betty has been in so many places, but she's meant to be with her granddaughter. Like I've known that from the jump, that she had to go through her process of getting where Baba wanted her to be.
That's
And it's
great.
just,
That's great.
And
it's
it sounds
just,
like Rosalie's
it's the same
same
thing.
thing.
Yeah, oh yeah. Rosalie and I met on Christmas Eve in
Chri-
1995.
Yeah,
Mm.
and
And,
I was caretaking the Baba Center on
and,
Little Santa Monica Boulevard, it used to be.
and it was through Rosalie
Wow.
that they were looking for an assistant caretaker in Marymount. But, and it's a, in our content, yeah, just Baba does great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a deep love.
Jonathan, do you know, have you guys read the latest Glow? There's a beautiful little story about Brook Green Gardens. Have you seen it, John? It's a wonderful little one-page story that
I'll
you
have to
should
look
read.
at it.
You should read definitely
Yeah,
before
we'll
you go.
definitely read it. I'll read it tomorrow.
Definitely.
Yeah, we can read it
Oh,
tomorrow.
there you go. Yeah, it's a sweet little story about Baba being there and kneeling down in prayer at the oak trees. He was so
Yeah,
moved.
there's he was on,
Oh, Buddha.
Richard and Mayan done a great job of documenting some of that. They finally identified the actual tree that Baba sat under when he told that story of being the Buddha. And it was a dogwood tree and a blight hit the dogwood tree. So those particular trees aren't there anymore, but they were able to establish the place where it is in the garden. So that's one of the places we'll go tomorrow.